بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه أجمعين. Before we start the new content, do you have any questions from the previous weeks? If no questions, I will start sharing my screen so we can go over what we need to, inshallah. So up until now, what we have been doing is we've been reading about inflection itself, right? We've been reading about inflection and the signs of the different types of inflections, and then the different signs of those inflections, right? We mentioned rafa, nasab, jazm, khafd, jazm. These were the types of inflection, and then we mentioned the signs of these inflections, which are, for example, the signs of dhamma. Who can tell me the signs of dhamma? Oh, the signs of rafa. Who can tell me the signs of rafa? I said the first one already, so you should know at least one.
Have you started sharing the screen?
No, actually, I am finding these slides so I can.
Okay, all right, okay.
Yeah.
So the inflections are rafa, nasab, jazm, and khafd.
Yes. So my question to you is, what are the signs of rafa?
Fatha, kasra, ya, nun, omission of nun, I believe. Yeah.
No, this is rafa. I think you confused it with nasab.
It's alif, waw, nun, and dhamma, right?
Yeah, yes, it's dhamma, alif, waw. Yeah. Yeah, very good. And the noon, exactly. So basically, just to quickly, I'll go over all of them. So you guys already said the signs of rafa, the signs of nasab or kasra, alif, ya. I'm sorry, fatha, alif, kasra, ya, and the omission of noon. And the signs of khafd are how many? Are three, right there. We don't have that many signs of khafd. The signs of khafd are kasra, or kasra, ya, and fatha. And the signs of jazm are sukun and omission. Sukun and omission. And omission is either the omission of haraka, I'm sorry, the omission of noon, or the omission of one of the faulty letters, either waw or alif or ya. So now, we basically, what I was trying to get at is, so far we've been discussing i'rab, and the primary topic of our discussion has been i'rab, and we have been talking about the inflected words as an extension to that primary topic, right? As a child of that primary topic. Now, what we will do is we're gonna flip it around, right? We're gonna put the inflected words in the center, and then Arab will be an extension of explaining the inflected words. So what do we mean by that? So the author, rahimahullah, what the author says in the next fasal, or short chapter, al-mu'arabatu qismani. The inflected words are of two types. The inflected words are of two types. قسم يعرب بالحركات. One type is inflected using diacritical marks. وقسم يعرف بالحروف, and one is inflected using letters. For example, one of the types of words that is inflected by diacritical marks is the singular noun, right? The singular noun is its raf is using is by dhamma, its nasb is by fatha, is khafd is by kasra, and does it have jazm? Does not have jazm, right? Because it's a noun. We said nouns do not accept jazm. So so basically this singular noun, as you just heard, all of its inflections are using diacritical marks. And the second type is, for an example for the second type, which is the words that are inflected using letters, is the dual noun. The dual noun, right? The dual noun, the rafa of a dual noun is using alif, right? And the nasb and khafd of a dual noun is by ya. You say muslimani, meaning two Muslims. You say muslimaini, meaning two Muslims, but either depending on the context and what you're saying, it is either mansub or makhfud. So so that's what I mean. Now we have put the inflected words in the center, and we are talking about their i'rab as an extension of the main topic. Does that make sense? Is that clear to you what I mean with the first the beginning part of the book? We were talking about the i'rab, and everything else that we talked about was just something basically secondary. I'rab was the main concept, was at the focal point. Now here we're putting the inflected words in the center. They become the focal point, and then everything that we'll talk about, which is basically their i'rab, whether it is by inflection, their inflection is by harakat or by huruf, that comes basically as an extension or as something that needs to be included to explain those inflected words. Does that make sense? The different approaches of the author?
Yes.
Okay. So he does this for your mind to get used to it, because like, have you seen people when they've seen something new, they're trying to figure it out, they're looking at it and from every aspect, from every side, to see how it looks. So basically what the author is doing is he is doing that for us to Arab. He is showing us Arab in every single direction, from every single perspective and aspect. So, and then the author rahimahullah says فَالَّذِي يُعْرَبُ بِالْحَرَكَاتِ أَرْبَعَةُ أَنْوَاءٍ. And the words that are inflected by their diacritical marks are of 4 types. Okay, I was writing this late at night, so I kept on missing the order between of and are. And the words that are inflected by diacritical marks are of 4 types. Al-ismu al-mufradu, the singular noun, right? The singular noun, as I said, its rafa is using dhamma, its nasab is by fatha, and its khafd is by kasra. وجمع التكسير, جمع التكسير, the broken plural. The second type of word that is inflected using diacritical marks is the broken plural. Who remembers what the broken plural was? The broken plural was a plural that did not follow the qaida, right? That did not follow the axiom or the maxim that we established, the general rule that we established for how to make something plural. For an example that we gave for the broken plural was al-rijal, right? We said al-rijalu, جاء الرجال. Just based on the previous examples, does anyone remember what ja is? So ja, I've used this I think a few times before. Ja
Yes.
means came. Yeah,
Yes, coming, right?
it means
Okay.
come. Yeah, exactly. Came. So ja is a verb, and then al-rijal came. In that case, rijal, the man, become the subject of ja, right? And because they are the subject of ja, and we'll talk about this more in detail, because they are the subject of jaa, they become marfu. And marfu, in the case of the broken plural, the sign of rafa for the broken plural is used as dhamma. So I would put a dhamma here. Okay. If it was mansub, it would be ar-rijala. If it was makhfud, it would be ar-rijali. Right. The same thing here. Let me give you an example for the singular noun. This would be ja, jaa zaydun. Ra'aytu. Who remembers what ra'aytu is? We spoke about this a few times. Zaydan. I saw Zayd. So Zayd becomes the object, right? And then marartu bi Zayd. Marartu bi Zaydin. I passed by Zayd. Let me write the explanation or the translations here as well. Zayd came. Zayd came. I saw Zayd. I passed by Zayd. And the same thing here. The man came. I saw the man. I passed by the man. Any questions on this slide? Now, the third type of word that is inflected using diacritical marks is the Jam'ul Mu'annath as-Salim. It is the sound feminine plural. The sound feminine plural. And the sound feminine plural, if you remember, we said there's a slide specifically about this. To make something feminine, to make a feminine noun plural is you add an alif and a ta to the end, right? So, for example, you had muslima. You would remove the ta and then add an alif and a ta at the end. It would be muslimat. And so I would say the example I would give here is جاءت المسلمات. رأيت المسلمات. مررت بالمسلمات. Right? The Muslim woman came. The Muslim woman came. I saw the woman and I passed by the Muslim woman. I did messed up the slide a little bit. Okay. Now, والفعل المضارع. So this was the third one. The diacritical mark here would be dhamma, right? Because we said already that the way you make a sound feminine plural marfu' is using a dhamma. So what I will give it here is a dhamma. The way you make a sound feminine plural mansub is by giving a kasra. And also the way you make it mahfud is by adding a kasra to the end. So that is the sound feminine plural. You see how everything we've discussed so far, it's diacritical, its inflection has been using diacritical marks, right? Because this is the first type of inflected words. Now the fourth one, والفعل المضارع الذي لم يتصل بآخره شيء. The fourth type of word. Yeah, the four type of words that are inflected using their critical marks, or basically is the imperfect verb that has nothing attached to its end. The imperfect verb that has nothing attached to its end. That is the fourth type that is inflected using their critical marks. Now I will give you an example here. For example, you say yaktubu. Who remembers what yaktubu is? This was part of the conjugations. Remember the conjugations that I wrote were using yaktubu. Yaktubu is he is writing. Yeah, he is writing, exactly. Or he will write. He is writing or he will write. Yaktubu, this is the marfu' version. And then if you add an agent of nasab, for example, if I add lan, this would make it mansub. If I add an agent of jazm, this would make it majzum, right? So it's rafa is using a dhamma, its nasab is using is by fatha, and its jazm is by sukun. Its jazm is indicated by sukun. Its nasab is indicated by a fatha, and its rafa is indicated by a dhamma. Again, here everything you was using diacritical marks. Now then the author says وكلها ترفع بالضمة وتنصب بالفتحة وتخفض بالكسرة وتجزم بالسكون. And everything that we mentioned, all these four are made marfu', and they are all made marfu' with dhamma, and made mansub with fatha, and made mahfud with kasra, and made majzoom with sukun, right? So as you already know, all of these are diacritical marks: fatha, kasra, sukun, dhamma, right? They're all diacritical marks. Now, does anyone see anything incomplete about this statement before I go to the next slide? Don't look at the next slide, but just tell me if you see anything incomplete about this statement. And they are all made marfu' with dhamma and mansub with al-fatha and mahfud with al-kasra. Does that sound right to you?
Marfu is making rafa, mansub is making nasab, makhfud is making khafad, and majzum is making jazm, right?
I think it depends on what you mean by making. So the marfu is the word that is made that marfu is the word that you have given it the inflection of rafa, and mansub is the word that you have given it the inflection of nasab, and makhfud is the word that you have given it the inflection of khafad, and majzum is the word that you have given it the inflection of jazm.
Right,
Uh,
right.
uh, yeah, so I wasn't sure what you meant, but if that's what you meant, that is correct.
I mean,
Um,
just to make sure that I understand that marfu is, I mean, like it is just writing, this is Arabic grammar. You change
yeah,
rafa to marfu and nasab to mansub. So this sometimes might be confusing. So that's why I just repeat it so that to be sure that I don't make a mistake.
that's a good idea. Thank you. I definitely encourage the things that you have mentioned before. If you ever forget, please do bring it up again. I believe I have added a slide about this, but I will check, or maybe I just said it verbally. But remember when I was talking about the qatil and the maqtul and the zalim and the mazlum, how the mazlum is the
Yes,
one, yeah.
yes.
So here the makhfud basically is the object word, meaning the word that you have given, you have acted upon, you have given it the inflection of rafa. Mansub is the word that you have given it the inflection of nasab. Makhfud is the word that you have given it the inflection of khafad, and majzum is the word that you have given it the inflection of sukun.
So
Uh,
we can say that marfu, mansub, makhfud, and majzum are pronouns, not nouns, but pronouns, right?
No, they are nouns and they are the inflected words. They
Okay.
are nouns and they are the inflected words. They are the inflected words, meaning the words that you apply rafa to become marfu. The words that you apply nasab to become mansub. The words that you apply khafad to become makhfud, and the words that you apply jazm to become majzum.
Jazakallah khairan.
Yeah. Is that clear to everyone?
Yes, Sheikh.
So
Adding more,
what I need to, yes,
it's like adding more branches to a tree.
yeah,
Actually, it's better
yeah.
to
So
say that it's like we already used the branches and now we're adding leaves to the branches.
yeah, so so that I'm not sure if I follow that analogy completely, but in a sense, basically we know what rafa is. We're just okay. So you're saying we know what the branch of rafa is, and we are adding the fruits or the leaves of rafa. So and the words, the inflected words, become the leaves or the fruits of rafa. Yeah, that's a good. And
Yeah,
if that's what you meant, that's a good analogy.
yeah,
So we know what the branch of rafa is. We know what the branch of nasab is. We know what the branch of khafad is. We know what the branch of jazm is, right? So, but these need to have fruit, right? Inflections, they have basically there's something that you need to apply inflection to, right? It has to produce some fruit, and the fruits that you produce by applying these inflections to them is either basically the inflected words that have rafa, which would be the marfu' words, or the mansub words, or the majzum words, or the makhfud words. Yeah, does that make sense to everyone?
yeah. It does.
Okay, jazakumullah khairan. Now, going back to my original question here, so does this statement hold for every single word? That's my question. And they are all made marfu, meaning all these four categories are made marfu with al-dhamma, made mansub with al-fatha, made makhfud with al-kasra, and majzum with sukun. Does this statement hold for every single word that you've discussed? So, for example, it says they're all made mansub using al-fatha. What did you use to make the sound feminine plural mansub? we used kasra, right?
The silent.
We
Okay, sorry.
No, we used al-kasra to make the sound feminine plural mansub. But the statement of the author is that they're all made mansub using al-fatha, right? So that's what I was hoping you guys would catch. But the author actually explains in the next slide. He says, وَخَرَجَ عَنْ ذَلِكَ ثَلَاثَةُ أَشْيَاء. And three things are excluded from this this statement that I made, meaning three things are excluded from what was mentioned. جمع المؤنث السالم ينصب بالكسرة. جمع المؤنث السالم ينصب بالكسرة، أو جمع المؤنث السالم ينصب بالكسرة. The sound feminine plural is made mansub with al-kasra. So meaning it did not follow what we have just mentioned here. So this is a general rule, but it has exceptions, right? Most words are inflected using or made marfu' using dhamma. Most words are made the majority, I should say. So the majority of words follow the statement of the author, rahimahullah. But he tries to make sure that you know there are exceptions by saying that three things are excluded from this what I just mentioned. The first one is the sound feminine plural, because it is made mansub using al-kasra. It is made mansub using al-kasra. And the second one is the partially declinable noun. Remember we said the partially declinable noun does not accept jar or kasra. So meaning its nasab would be its khafad would be using al-fatha. The partially declinable noun is made makhfud using al-fatha. So this also goes against our general rule that makhfud words are or these four categories are made makhfud using al-kasra, right? That was what the author mentioned in the previous slide. But this type does not follow that rule, because it is made makhfud with al-fatha, meaning the partially declinable noun does not follow that rule. And remember, if I told you the partially declinable noun is a noun that has two faults in it, that take away from it certain rights that nouns have. I know this is very discrimination. This is kind of discrimination based on being faulty. But yeah, so if because these nouns have certain faults in them, we take away certain rights that they have. So for example, Talha, or what example should I use? Okay. جاء سلمان. جاء سلمان ورأيت سلمان ومررت بسلمان. Okay. Now here everything is fine until we reach بسلمان. مررت بسلمان. Here the Salman is for your information is a singular noun. Using the rule that we discussed, what inflection should Salman have here?
Dhamma, right?
So no. So Dhamma would have yeah. So
we should inflection. My bad.
Yeah. So Dhamma is. Let me just explain it a little. Yeah. Does anyone know?
It should be kasra.
Yeah. Exactly. Very good, brother Fahad Haidar. It should be kasra because this is as I said. This remember the ba is a harf of khafad, right? Is one of the huruf of khafad. So Salman should have a kasra because it is makhfud, but it does not because it does not follow that rule. It is one of the partially declinable nouns, so it does not accept a kasra. Therefore, it is made makhfud using al-fatha. Does that make sense? Cricket.
So since it doesn't take it, and then it goes down to being a fatha afterwards. That makes sense. Actually,
Yeah,
kind
so
of
it doesn't.
narrows it down, though.
What is that, Brother Khaldin?
Kind of narrows it down. Like it makes it easier for you to understand. So if it doesn't, if you know that it usually takes kasra, you can do the process of elimination, and that leaves you putting the fatha.
Yeah, so basically that because fatha is given to it because whenever we want to give a word or a letter, if we have the option of choosing what diacritical mark we give a letter, we always give it a fatha because a fatha is the easiest one to pronounce. So just try it on your side. Say a, e, u. Which one is the easiest to pronounce? A, e, u. Isn't a is the easiest to pronounce, right? It takes less energy and less effort. So that is why whenever we are given an option to choose, obviously we no longer are given an option because these were decided by the Arabs. But whenever Arabs were given an option to choose what diacritical marks they can put on a letter, they would always choose a fatha because fatha is the easiest one to pronounce. And in this case, the Arabs were told, or basically we know that Salman cannot have what? It cannot have a kasra. So we are left with a dhamma and a fatha. Which one is easier to pronounce? It's a fatha. So we give Salman a fatha. It's like Salman does not have a toy, or Salman does not have a PlayStation. Does not get a PlayStation. We have a stick that we can give him to play with, or we can try to find a Nintendo for him. Which one is easier? Bad example. Yeah, we give him a stick, but we make sure he doesn't hit anyone with it.
We don't give anything. That's the easiest.
Yeah, that's not fair though. It's easy, but it's not fair, right? Adilu, be just. What, Brother Qadruddin, did you say something?
Never mind. It's okay.
Okay. So any questions so far? Okay. I will give some examples here as well, so it becomes clear to you. Ya Allah. Ja'al muslimatu. رأيت المسلمات. And مررت بالمسلمات.
Brother, can I
Yes.
ask a question?
Yes,
w- sorry, why is Salman partially declinable noun
because
in the second example?
So if you remember when we were discussing, when we were, I was explaining the partially declinable nouns, I said these, how does a noun become partially declinable? By having two faults in it. And there are actually 9 faults that if a noun has any of the 2 of these 9 faults, it falls under the partially declinable category. Now, I told you that we'll discuss the faults later, because it may be too advanced for this class. So all I need you to know is that these partially declinable, there is something faulty about them. That is why they become partially declinable. Now, just to give you, just to give you the reason for Salman, you don't have to know this. You won't be tested on this. Alif and Noon, uh, Alif and Noon are actually have ending with Alif and Noon is one of those faults that are mentioned. And I told you there are 9 faults, right? So there's a list of faults that you will have to memorize. One of those is that ending with Alif and Noon, and that
So
combined, yeah.
no, sorry. So it doesn't matter if it's someone's name or if it's like,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. So
okay.
that's a good question. So
Any
that when it's combined with being a name, that when it's combined with, so if it's not anyone's name, no, we don't care if it's end with you can still give it a kasra. But that combined with being a name, then it becomes, I told you it has to have 2 faults, right? So being a name is also is one of those 9 faults. So the reasoning behind all that, inshallah, we'll discuss if Allah grant us long enough life. We can discuss those in future classes. But Alif and Noon, just know that Alif ending with Alif and Noon and being a name, both of these are faults. So, and Salman has both of them. So unfortunately, he doesn't get a PlayStation.
Sheikh.
Yes.
Sheikh, I had taken a note from a previous lecture, and over here I have written that I might be wrong. All right, I have written that the 2 imperfections were due to the faulty letters alif, waw, ya. Was it incorrect? What I have written?
No, so we're talking about different imperfections and different faults. So sometimes when it comes to the last letter, when it comes to okay, how should I explain this? So when we're talking about omitting, making a word majzoom by omission of the last letter, right? Then we're talking about whether that word ends with one of the faulty letters of waw, alif, and yeah, we said those are the faulty letters, right? So
Yes.
that's actually a different topic. So that's and that's a different topic. Now here we're talking about when a word becomes partially declinable, where when does it not accept jar and kasra. And here we have 9 imperfections. And those 9 imperfections are different than the 3 faulty letters or the unsound letters that we discussed when we were discussing jazm.
Got it.
Right? Does that make sense?
Got it. Yes,
Yeah.
got it.
Okay. Now, okay, so al-muslimat here, al-muslimat, it is made mansub using a kasra, right? It doesn't follow the rule. And then the last one is والفعل المضارع المعتل الآخر والفعل المضارع المعتل الآخر يجزم بحذف آخره. And the imperfect verb with an unsound or faulty ending. Oh, so now we're talking about what you just said, brother Al-Rajul. And the imperfect verb with an unsound or faulty ending, which means alif, waw, and ya. Let me put what the faulty words are. So alif, al-waw, al-ya. Okay, so I just put them here in case you need to go back and reference. Okay, and the imperfect verb with an unsound, faulty ending is made majzoom using the emission of its last letter, right? So what did we say about the imperfect verb? How does it become majzoom? Is using sukun, right? That's the general rule. That is how we make an imperfect verb. A majzoom is by adding a sukun to its the diacritical mark sukun to its end. But there's an exception, and this is the third exception out of the three exceptions that the author mentioned to us. And if an imperfect verb has one of the unsound or faulty letters, meaning alif, ya, waw, and ya, its ending at its end, it will become majzoom using it will be made majzoom using the emission of its last letter, not using sukun, right? So that's the difference. And let me give you an example here. Lam, okay, yaqdi is without any emission, or yeah, exactly, it's without any emission. Lan yaqdiya is also without emission, but if we make it majzoom, it will be lam yaqdi, right? We emit the ya. That is how we made it majzoom, right? You see here the difference between yaqdi and yaqdi. Yaqdi, lan yaqdiya, lam yaqdi. This one has a ya, this one does not have a ya. And what does this tell us? It tells us that this imperfect verb is made majzoom. Yeah, so I know we went through, we still have a few more minutes, but I think I should stop here because this section is complete. Now we're going to move on to the next section, or to the next type. Inshallah, next week we're going to talk about the words that are inflected using using letters, not diacritical marks. Thus far, all we have been so basically this section was about the words that are inflected using diacritical marks, and inshallah next week we will discuss the words that are inflected using huruf or letters. And this is basically a review if you think about it. Why do I say it's a review? Because we already know all this. We're just looking at it from a different angle, right? We've already discussed the fact that the sound feminine plural is made marfu' using a dhamma, it's made mansub using a kasra, and it's made majzoom or makhfud using a kasra, right? That's we've already discussed all of that, but from a different angle. So basically, the way we discussed it was, for example, we said, nasb has 5 different signs. One of the signs of nasb is al-kasra, and the place where al-kasra becomes a sign of nasb is the sound feminine plural. Remember, that's how we discussed it. If Brother Khadaruddin, have you guys made that tree that we discussed? So basically, if we had that tree, I would show you how we have discussed everything that we mentioned today in today's class. But as I said, we discussed it from a different perspective. So this is a review basically, nothing else. But still, I want you to take time and go over the slides and internalize it, inshallah. Any questions? Okay, if there are no questions, inshallah, we'll conclude. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه أجمعين. آمين.
آمين.